All right, so get ready, because today we're going deep on the origins of Bitcoin.
Ooh, exciting.
You know, everyone thinks it all started with that white paper back in 2008.
Right, Satoshi's white paper?
Yeah, but there's actually a whole lot more to it than that,
Oh, yeah, for sure. Way more.
like a whole hidden prehistory to uncover. And that's what we're doing today.
It's really fascinating stuff.
We've got excerpts from this article on Bitcoin's history,
Okay.
and we're going to kind of unpack it all, like what led to that moment.
It's like trying to appreciate a masterpiece without knowing anything about the artist, you know?
Oh, I like that.
You miss so much. You can't really grasp Bitcoin without understanding the philosophy and the tech.
So true. So before Satoshi's white paper, what was going on? Like, who were the players?
Well, you had these groups like the extropians and the cypherpunks.
Okay.
They were already pushing the limits, exploring digital currencies back in the 80s and 90s.
Seriously, that early?
Yeah.
What were they even trying to do?
The extropians, they were all about using tech to overcome human limitations like life extension, artificial intelligence.
Wow.
Yeah. And they saw digital currencies as a way to break free from like traditional financial systems.
It's like they wanted to hack the system itself, not just build on top of it.
Exactly. And then you've got the cypherpunks. They were super worried about privacy,
Right.
government surveillance.
Big brother.
They saw cryptography as this tool to protect individual freedom in a digital world.
So they're like digital freedom fighters.
Absolutely. They even went through this thing called the crypto wars. Governments actually tried to restrict access to encryption
Really? Wow.
because they were afraid of its potential,
I can imagine.
It was a big deal.
It's crazy how relevant those early struggles are to what's happening with crypto today.
Right. History repeats itself.
But how did they even try to create digital cash back then? I mean, the internet was barely a thing.
It's mind-boggling, right? But one of the biggest breakthroughs was public key cryptography.
Okay, yeah, I vaguely remember learning about that.
It changed everything.
Encrypt with a public key, decrypt with a private key.
Exactly. Secure communication and transactions.
Yeah, it seemed pretty genius, but I never thought about how important it was for digital currencies.
It was like the missing piece. Secure digital transactions before that were practically impossible.
Huh.
So with this new tech, all of a sudden you start seeing these really interesting early attempts to make digital cash happen.
Okay, so let's get into these early experiments.
Okay.
Who are the big names and what were they trying to do?
Well, you have David Chaum, the guy who created eCash.
Okay.
Now, this guy was way ahead of his time.
Oh, yeah.
He even developed a system for, like, untraceable emails.
What? Untraceable emails back then?
Yeah. Way before things like Tor.
So what was his idea with eCash?
He wanted to make digital cash as anonymous as physical cash.
So, like, privacy was already a major focus even in those early days.
Absolutely.
Wow.
It's amazing how he was already exploring those concepts.
But didn't eCash fail in the end?
It did, yeah, commercially at least.
But why? Was the tech not ready?
It's a good question, and it kind of highlights an important point about crypto. You know, a great idea isn't enough. You got to be able to deal with all the legal and financial stuff, too.
It's got to work in the real world.
Exactly.
So were other early attempts focused on the same thing? Like, was everyone just obsessed with anonymity?
Well, some were trying to build entire new financial systems.
Really?
Like e-gold. It was actually backed by real gold. Can you believe that?
Whoa. So they were literally trying to digitize gold.
Pretty much. And they wanted it to be completely independent of governments and banks.
Wow, that's so interesting. So it was like a precursor to all this decentralized finance stuff we see today.
Definitely. But, e-gold ran into some legal trouble and got shut down.
Oh, too bad.
It just goes to show that clash between, like, innovation and regulation.
It's a constant battle.
Right. Always
Yeah.
has been, always will be.
So we've got eCash fighting for privacy and then eGold trying to create this whole alternative financial system.
Yeah.
What came next? Like,
Mhm.
what were some of the projects that were getting closer to what Bitcoin would eventually become?
Well, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
We start to see projects like Hashcash, B-Money, and BitGold.
Okay.
They were all building on those ideas that came before, like really refining the concept of digital cash.
Let's dive into those a bit. What was so special about each one?
Well, take Hashcash, for example.
Okay.
Believe it or not, it was originally designed to fight email spam.
No way. What does stopping spam have to do with Bitcoin?
Well, it used this idea called proof of work. Computers would solve these complex puzzles, and that would, in a way, create value.
Interesting.
And that idea, that concept of proof of work, would become super important for Bitcoin security.
Wow. So it's like they accidentally stumbled upon a key piece of Bitcoin's puzzle while trying to solve something totally different.
That's innovation for you. You never know where the next big breakthrough will come from.
So what about B-Money? What was that all about?
So B-Money was this proposal by Weidai
Right.
for a decentralized system, outside of any government's control.
Sounds familiar.
It involved a shared ledger and a proof-of-work currency, very similar to Bitcoin.
It's like he was on the verge of inventing it himself.
He was close,
Yeah.
but it never actually got implemented.
Oh, so close. But his ideas clearly had a big impact on Bitcoin, right?
Huge. In fact, Satoshi actually acknowledged B-Money as a major inspiration.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So then there's Nick Szabo and BitGold. I've definitely heard that name before.
Right. He's kind of a legend in the crypto world. He was obsessed with this idea of digital gold.
What does that even mean?
He wanted to create a digital asset that would be scarce, secure, and independent of any authority, just like real gold.
So he was basically trying to invent Bitcoin before Bitcoin.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
BitGold had a lot of the same elements.
It's amazing how all of these ideas were swirling around before Bitcoin finally arrived.
But it did have one major issue: fungibility.
Fungibility. You have to explain that one.
So fungibility means that every unit of a currency has to be interchangeable, have the same value. Like, imagine a gold coin where some parts of it were worth more than others.
Yeah, that wouldn't make much sense.
Exactly. It wouldn't work very well as money. And that was the problem with BitGold. But Satoshi, he figured out how to solve it with Bitcoin.
So after all these experiments, all these close calls, Bitcoin finally comes onto the scene.
And the timing couldn't have been more perfect.
Oh,
remember what was happening in 2009?
2009, that was the financial crisis.
Bingo. The whole world was in a panic, people losing faith in banks and governments.
And boom, here comes Bitcoin, this radical new alternative based on decentralization and cryptography.
It was like the universe was sending a message.
It must have felt like a beacon of hope for those early adopters,
Wow.
the ones who really got what Bitcoin was all about.
It was a turning point, for sure.
And then just to make things even more poetic, that very first Bitcoin transaction was between Satoshi and Hal Finney, another one of those cypherpunk pioneers.
It's like a passing of the torch from one generation of innovators to the next.
It gives me chills just thinking about it. They were the true believers, the ones who put their ideas into action when everyone else thought they were crazy.
Yeah, they changed the world.
And that's just the beginning of this story.
There's so much more to come.
So we've got this incredible backdrop, all these ideas swirling around, and then Bitcoin emerges right in the middle of a financial crisis.
It's wild, isn't it?
Like the perfect timing.
Right. It's hard to imagine a more fitting moment. People had lost faith in the system, the banks.
And then there's Bitcoin, this totally radical alternative.
Yeah, built on these ideas of decentralization and cryptography.
It must have been so exciting for those early adopters.
For sure, the ones who really understood the potential.
Yeah, like they were part of something truly revolutionary.
And those early days were full of these amazing moments that really solidified Bitcoin's place,
Totally. Like Bitcoin Pizza Day.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic. May 22nd, 2010, someone bought 2 pizzas with 10,000 Bitcoin.
I know, it's crazy to think about now with how much that's worth.
Yeah, right. Talk about an expensive pizza.
But at the time, it was huge. I mean, it proved that Bitcoin could actually be used for, real transactions.
Exactly. It wasn't just some theoretical thing anymore.
And then you have the rise of mining starting to take off around then, too.
Yeah, those early miners were like the pioneers of the Bitcoin world.
I always picture them like those old gold prospectors panning for gold.
Except they're using computers to mine for Bitcoin.
And with the creation of mining pools like Slush Pool, suddenly, even people with less powerful computers could join in.
Right. It made mining more accessible.
Such an important step for decentralization.
Spreading that power more widely.
But, we can't talk about early Bitcoin without bringing up Silk Road.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other chapter of the story.
The infamous darknet marketplace.
Yeah, it definitely contributed to that image of Bitcoin being used for, illegal stuff.
Even though there were totally legal things being sold there, too.
Of course, but that perception stuck.
It's such a classic example of how technology can be used for both good and bad.
It's all about the intentions, right?
And then, after all that, you have Satoshi just vanishing.
Disappears into thin air.
April 2011, poof, gone.
It's almost mythical, isn't it?
It really cemented Bitcoin's decentralization, though.
Absolutely. No single leader calling the shots.
But it created this vacuum, too, right?
It's true.
Who was going to guide Bitcoin's development, keep it on track?
That's a question the community has been wrestling with ever since.
And speaking of challenges, there was that Mt. Gox hack a few years later.
Oh yeah, 2014, that was a huge blow.
It was the biggest Bitcoin exchange at the time, and they lost so much Bitcoin.
People were devastated. It really shook their confidence.
I mean, it's a powerful reminder that even in a decentralized world, there are still those centralized points of failure.
Exactly, and it made people rethink security in a big way.
Around the same time, you start seeing governments try to step in and regulate things, too.
Right, like the bit license in New York.
I remember people were freaking out about that.
They saw it as an attack on innovation.
It's that classic tension between regulation and innovation, right?
You want to protect people and prevent crime, but you don't want to stifle the growth of something new.
Yeah, it's a tough balance.
No easy answers.
But even with all that, Bitcoin kept evolving.
Oh yeah, it's unstoppable.
Like, the Lightning Network launched in 2016.
A way to make Bitcoin transactions faster and cheaper.
Right, that's the one that does stuff like off-chain transactions.
It's this whole second layer built on top of the main blockchain.
It was a game changer in terms of making Bitcoin more practical for everyday use.
For sure, but even then, the community was still arguing about how best to scale Bitcoin.
Leading to those infamous scaling wars.
And ultimately, the creation of Bitcoin Cash in 2017, that fork of the blockchain.
So you have this technology that's all about decentralization, and yet it still runs into these issues with how to make decisions, how to reach consensus.
Yeah, it's almost ironic, isn't it?
But it also shows that Bitcoin is this living, breathing thing, constantly changing and adapting.
It's a testament to its resilience, I think.
It can't be controlled by any one person or group.
And that's what makes it so powerful.
So we've gone from those early cypherpunk dreams, digital freedom, all the way to these scaling wars and the Lightning Network.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
What a ride. What does it all mean, though? Like, what have we learned about Bitcoin's origins?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that Bitcoin is not just about the tech or even finance, really. It's about this vision for like a different kind of world.
Okay.
A world where people have more control.
More control over their own lives, their own money.
Exactly. It's almost like a social movement, but disguised as this technological innovation.
It's funny because those early ideals, the stuff the extropians and cypherpunks were talking about,
Yeah.
it's all still so relevant to the Bitcoin community today.
It's baked into Bitcoin's DNA.
And it's amazing to think about all those early pioneers trying to create digital cash back when the internet was barely a thing.
They were true visionary.
We had so many hurdles to overcome.
But they kept pushing forward, believing in this idea.
It really shows you that Bitcoin wasn't just some lucky accident.
Right.
It was the result of years of hard work, experiments, and people who deeply wanted something better.
They were paving the way.
But Bitcoin's journey isn't over, is it?
Oh no, not even close. It's still evolving, still facing challenges, and still sparking debate, which is great.
Like that whole thing about scaling Bitcoin.
Yeah, the scaling wars, things got pretty heated.
It's interesting, though, because it shows that even with decentralization,
Yeah.
you still have these fundamental challenges with how to reach consensus, how to make decisions.
Exactly. It's like this inherent tension in the whole concept.
But it also shows the passion of this community.
Oh, for sure. They really care about getting it right.
They're not just in it for the money. They actually believe in this thing.
And that's what makes me so optimistic about the future of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's got this incredible ability to adapt, to evolve, thanks to all these people working on it.
It's like this global community of developers, entrepreneurs, everyday users.
It's constantly changing, responding to its environment, finding new ways to thrive.
It's like a living organism in a way.
I love that analogy, and that's what makes it so exciting to be a part of.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Bitcoin's origins,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you really want our listener to walk away with?
I want them to understand that Bitcoin is more than just a digital currency, more than just an investment. It's a powerful idea, an idea that challenges the way things are, an idea that empowers individuals.
It's about people.
Exactly. It's about the choices we make and the future we want to build.
So to our listener out there, keep learning, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions.
Yeah. Stay curious.
The world of Bitcoin is full of surprises, and who knows what's waiting for us just around the corner.
The journey's just beginning.
Until next time, happy diving.